Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. So today we have a new build. We have a new Series 5 card, and I'm going to be completely transparent. This is probably the last Series 5 card that we will pull for a very, very long time. So after spending and unlocking some caches, I had enough to get a third Series 5 card, but I am pretty much tapped out of tokens. I might top up if a really strong Series 4 card comes up. Otherwise, I'm going to have to brew with what I have and then just use what I unlock organically. So today's pull was Bast, and Bast is a 1-cost, 1-power card that has the on reveal ability, set the power of all cards in your hand to 3. Now, this can work in a couple of different scenarios. Similar to Valkyrie, Bast might be pretty decent in a Cerebro 3 deck, making sure that whatever we have, if we get hit with a Wakandan Embassy, if we get hit with a Scorpion, we can right-size those cards. We can use this to set our Cerebro and our Mystique to 3 power as well. That way they get the buff themselves, and then you have a pretty decent power push all across the board. You can also potentially use this in a Khazar Zoo deck to be able to buff up all of your 1-cost cards to 3 that are in your hand, and use the method where you're going to drop those cards on the 6th turn anyways, and then they can all be 3 at base. If you drop Khazar, that's going to be 4. If you drop Blue Marvel as well, all of those 1-cost cards are going to be 5 power at the minimum. And so then you can push quite a bit of power onto the board, but that also is not what we're building today. Today we're using a deck list that was brewed by Vin Kelsier, who does a lot of brewing on the Snap.fan Discord, and this one uses 2 Series 5 cards, so not going to be very accessible to most people. However, you can take out Shuri and use something else that was in the traditional negative serotonin list in like a Jubilee. But for this scenario, you can use Shuri, and sometimes you'll hit an inverted Iron Man to make that Iron Man 10 power. You can use it to double the power of your Sera. You have a little bit of potential. Now, important to know that the on reveal from Wolfsbane will trigger after it gets doubled from Shuri, so Shuri and Wolfsbane is not necessarily a good combo by themselves, but if you use Bast, doubling that to 3 power is always pretty decent. You can always hit it on a Sera or one of your inverted cards to elevate your upside quite a bit on that last turn, and if it becomes an inverted card itself, that's a 1-cost, 4-power card that then you can then double the next card you drop, and you can start doing some really insane combos. Now, the idea of this list is that even if you don't draw into Mr. Negative, you can still win a lot of your games. Mr. Negative helps you increase your highest high roll, so the max amount of power that you can push onto the board, but it is not absolutely necessary to have. If you don't draw into Mr. Negative, you can still have curved out your Angela, your Bishop, your Bast into a turn 5 Sera, and then you can flood the board with some of your other cards. And it works pretty well. It starts feeling almost back to how negative serotonin used to feel, in that you can do a surprising amount of power on the final couple of turns. So that's a very brief explanation of the deck. Let's go ahead and jump into a couple of games so I can show you how to navigate it. All right, so first up we have Mono, and the first location is Ego, so we're gonna snap into it. My rule of thumb is that I always snap on Ego. And so we snapped, they stayed in, it played their Iceman, we don't have a turn 1 drop. We do have only 1 turn 2 drop in our Angela, and so we might even curve into an Angela into a Bishop. Hopefully it does not play a Mystique just out into the open. He had a chance to change himself, but he decided to change mid instead. So Angela comes down. Please, we are hoping for the Bishop played, not... Okay, Ego, let's go. You could have played the uneventful Mystique, but instead you did the right play here. Now, can you hit a Mr. Negative as well? Can you do a Mr. Negative? No, you do a Mr. Fantastic, which is not bad. It at least plays it in mid, so maybe they've reworked his AI a little bit. They did Deathlock, which destroys their Scarlet Witch, so maybe not. But at least it played Mr. Fantastic mid, and that pushes power to the left and right. I don't know if we just got lucky or if that's, how it was in... No, now we do Mr. Fantastic into the Gia to give us more rocks. Ego, I was just bragging on your AI, and then you just had to absolutely laugh in my face. Unfortunately. So they now have us tied in the left. Oh no, why would you do this? Ego is crushing my soul right now. I'm guessing they didn't have a great play that they pushed either. Had they not pushed anything into Strange Academy, we would have won that one by 2. I was going to let it play out. They retreated. They did the honors for us instead. We will take that win. Let's go ahead and jump over into a more traditional match. All right, next up we have Autobot Tran. And the first location is the Superflow, so we do get some additional upside from being able to drop some of our cards a little bit earlier than we normally would. And so they played Sentinel right off the bat. Could be a Devil Dino, could be a Cerebro 3 deck. We have to be on the lookout for those nowadays more than ever. I think I'm going to go ahead and play our Mr. Fantastic into the far right lane. We don't have any cards that can change a location, so if we're going to try to push for the Danger Room, at some point we're just going to have to risk it. Now, they do have a Polaris, so it's not a Cerebro 3 anymore, or not a chance for a Cerebro 3. So honestly, I don't know. I don't know what they're running. It is turn 3. We have 4 energy because of the Superflow. This one may change into the Danger Room. And so just in case it does, we're actually going to go ahead and play our Wolfsbane. Oh, that's not great. So the middle location is the negative zone. So it's a -3 power to every single card in that location. Which, I mean, they have 3 cards there and it becomes 0 power. And so they might as well not have anything there and have just played the Polaris. I'm actually going to skip on turn 4. We could change it to, we could play our Iron Man, but I think we hold that for a more surprising last turn play. Now, if we could have drawn into, Sera, we would find ourselves in it with quite a bit more upside. But I think we're going to play Bast, and then we're going to play Iron Man. It's going to set all of these cards to 3 power. We can then do something like a Mystique to copy Iron Man's ability. Then we can cap this one out with a Mojo and just call it good. I'm going to go ahead and snap. They do have a 7 power vision that they can move across the board. With our Mr. Fantastic, I'm actually going to leave the negative zone empty just because you have to play at least 5 power to get 2 power there. And so if they end up moving their vision out, they're going to have to invest quite a few resources there in order to find the win condition. They played Magneto, which could have pulled one of our 3 or 4 cost cards over. Luckily, they were all in the Superflow, so we were fine. With the Magneto that they stacked here, do we think they're going to invest heavily here? We're actually going to play our Mojo in the left. That's going to bring us up by 6 to an 8 power lane. So if they just move their vision, that's not enough to win this location. Then we're going to play the copy of our Iron Man here to make sure that if they are stacking some very high power cards into the Superflow, it's not going to be enough for them to find that win condition. Okay, so they do move vision over. Oh, and they have the Mysterio coming out. If this is the fake Mysterio, then we just win in the negative zone. If this is the real Mysterio, then I think we win in the far right lane because we're copying the Iron Man. That is going to push our power here very, very high. It just depends on where the real Mysterio is. If it's here, they don't have a chance. And so it ended up being in mid for some reason. Even though they knew that we had the 2 power there from our Mr. Fantastic, we did end up losing the far left lane. Bast got killed by Killmonger, but otherwise a fairly straightforward win. Not the best showcase from the deck. I'm honestly not sure what kind of deck the opponent was running. It's some kind of utility deck that allows them to move their cards around and pull ours in inopportune locations. Luckily, we found ourselves in a winning condition. Let's jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have De Winter, and the first location is Throne Room. The middle location is Hala. We're actually going to play our Angela into the Throne Room. We have Sera, so on 5 we're going to be able to play that into a couple of extra cards. Maybe we'll have a Mr. Negative that we can play on 4. If not, maybe we can find the upside somewhere else. Let's go ahead and play our Bishop into the Throne Room. We don't have a great shot. I don't want to push for Hala, just in case we end up losing that location. but they do us a favor and drop Storm into the far left lane. We have a big push of resources there already, and so we don't have to invest too much into that location. We're going to go ahead and play Shuri. That's going to allow us to kind of invest into whatever card we play next. And so since the highest one, the most optimal play line for us is going to be Sera, we're going to drop our Sera after the Shuri. That's going to make it an 8 power play, which is a decent follow-up. We can then end up doing maybe an Iron Man. We could do a Rogue and a Mystique. We have a couple of play options that we can go with in this final turn. Ooh, and then they have Captain Marvel. So if they win this lane, which they're not going to, but if they did, it can fly over here and it can win them this lane. So they're going to need a big power push here as well. So I don't want to steal his ability though, is the only issue. Oh, because of Sera, we can actually do something kind of silly. We can do an Iron Man into a copied Iron Man ability. It's going to make this, 32 power in this lane. And then we're also going to have 11 power here. Now, if they have something that can go wide into the flooded lane, they'd be able to beat us. Otherwise, we had a very, very solid last turn play. Even though we didn't get the Mr. Negative down, we had the Iron Man and the Mystique for the double Iron Man potential. The Shuri allowed us to have a decent power push in Hala before we couldn't have invested there prior to turn 5 anyways. And we were kind of able to double what we were going to drop there anyways. And so let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, so next up we have Red Rubio. The first location being Wakanda is okay. If we can draw into our Bast on turn 2 or turn 3, then we're going to be able to increase the upside of all of these cards. Otherwise, we're going to drop our Mr. Negative just onto the board. I'm going to go ahead and play our Angela. I'm not going to hold out for a Bast, and I might even play our Bishop, even if we drew into Bast next turn anyways. And then it's Shuri. So Shuri's not bad, especially being able to do kind of a sneaky last turn play into the throne room. If we do it on an inverted Iron Man, that becomes a 10 power, potentially 20 power card that then doubles his own power into a 40 power lane. We have some options with it. We're going to drop our Bishop into Monster Metropolis. Next turn, we're going to do Mr. Negative. I don't know exactly where we're going to do that at, but we know that with a movement deck, which is what it looks like they're running, typically that is a very strong contender for the left in the middle lane. It's usually a little bit weaker in the far right lane, but we might be able to find a way to kind of finagle our win condition over there. But I'm actually going to play our Mr. Negative into the throne room. We're going to take that -1 power and just absorb it. We are going to draw into 2 inverted cards. We have both our Mystique and our Iron Man still in our deck that we could potentially use our Shuri for. We have a couple of other cards that benefit from it as well. There is the Iron Man. This is probably the highest high roll we could ask for. And then they drop Dracula into the throne room, which is an interesting choice. I think we play our Bast, our Shuri, and then our inverted Iron Man. But where do we want our inverted Iron Man to be? This is going to allow us to have a pretty big push in Monster Metropolis. Even if they end up doing a Heimdall, it pushes over here, and then this absorbs a 20 power play. We're going to be able to contest for the Monster Metropolis lane. The movement Dracula is kind of interesting to see though. So let's do that. Let's do the Bast into the Shuri, into the Iron Man. It's going to set both of these to 3, so it buffs them up ever so slightly. And it will allow us to into an Apocalypse. What is this list, Red Rubio? It's a mixture between a movement and a discard deck. Very, very interesting. And so we do have a pretty big push in Wakanda. We have the big Iron Man here. That's going to be very hard for them to beat. We have the inverted Sera now, but I think, honestly, Mr. Fantastic here, and then we do a Wolfsbane. That's going to cap out this location. It's going to give us 12 more power here. It's going to give us a decent amount of power here. If they do a Heimdall, it shifts it here. They might end up winning, but a Heimdall here would shift Dracula as well. So then we could win the throne room with the Mr. Fantastic play. I think we're okay. Is this the Heimdall? The Heimdall will push their Kraven here. We lose this lane, but we should have no issues winning this one with the Shuri. Oh no, it's just a Chavez. into absorbing the Heimdall. They did have Heimdall in hand. They could have played it, but they just played the Chavez instead. We won the far left lane with our Wolfsbane cap, and we won the middle with the Mr. Fantastic. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. Alright, so next up we have Bane 1. And the first location is the Superflow, so we get an additional energy starting out. So I'm going to go ahead and start off by playing our Angela. That's going to allow us to start flooding some of our power onto the board. Now, it is an unknown location, and we might even be tempted to drop our Bishop into the TVA, which is also pretty interesting. Depending on what kind of deck they have, and the TVA will now double after turn 4 as long as it initiates after the last patch. And so we're looking at 2 cubes right now, 4 cubes if one person snaps, or even 8 cubes if both snap, whereas before it would be a max of 4. So let's go ahead and play our Bishop into the last unknown location. Ooh, they discard their Helicarrier with Lady Sif. Very interesting. That's the first time I'm seeing the Helicarrier in game, and so they get 3 random cards. And so this early on, that might do them a decent amount of good. And so let's go ahead and play our Mr. Fantastic into the TVA lane. I think that they're going to win the throne room just based off of we're not going to be able to play that many cards onto the board to push our Bishop up over 4. 4 is the limit that we're looking to beat, and I don't think we're going to have anything that will be able to do that. Ooh, and then they play Moon Girl to double whatever they had. And so I'm going to play Mojo over into throne room. I'm going to play our Rogue into TVA to buff this lane up by a little bit. I don't know that that is enough, but I do think they probably move their Nightcrawler here or here, and so we're going to need a win condition. Now, playing 2 cards will let us match the throne room with our Bishop, and we're going to be able to beat that power by having our Mojo. So we actually sneak away the win here by having more power than they have in the TVA. They left their Nightcrawler alone. We were able to match it with our Bishop. We got very, very lucky. They did have a Devil Dino, so it was a hand-size Helicarrier deck that was able to run Lady Sif to discard the Helicarrier. It's a very interesting play line, and I wish we would have seen it play out all the way until the end, because I think that's pretty cool and pretty unique. But we will take the win where we can. Let's go ahead and jump over. I'm not going to count that towards the 5. Let's jump over into one more. All right, next up we have Bob, and the first location is Dark Dimension. And there's some kind of cheeky things that I like to do with the Dark Dimension. And so we're going to play Bast. That's going to set all of these to 3. We can actually set Mystique as our first card in the Dark Dimension. And then as long as Iron Man is our very last card that we drop in the game, after that one reveals, Mystique will reveal afterwards. So she'll copy the Iron Man's ability. Now that only works if she's the first card revealed here. Otherwise, it would try to match whatever the last card that was revealed was. And so having Bast there was actually pretty big. We can set our Mystique to 3. We have our Iron Man at 3. We can then start stacking some of our cards between Dark Dimension and Subterranea. Those are the 2 locations that we're going to compete for unless they just didn't play in Gamma Lab, which they did. And so we're just absolutely going to play away from that location. And then we're pushing for these 2 as the wins. Either one of these could be the real Mysterio. We don't know which one that is. And so I think I'm going to play our Mr. Fantastic and a Rock. Now, the reason I'm playing a Rock into Dark Dimension, in one of the recent patches, they changed the way that Wolfsbane functions. Even if she's played and then a Rock's played after, her own reveal will buff up for all of the unrevealed cards in that location or in that lane. And so we're able to do Wolfsbane now. We can hide it behind the Dark Dimension lane. Then even if we end up eventually dropping a Rock there in return, she will still act as if this lane was full and get an extra 6 power. We are also going to play Mojo into Subterranea. Next turn, we're going to play our Iron Man and a Rock to cap out this location. And we might be able to find our win condition. Now, they do have Sera, so they're going to be able to play quite a bit onto the board. We draw into our Sera 1 turn too late, but we do have a double Iron Man, which is probably our only potential saving grace. We know that this is either the real Mysterio or a Mysterio token, and the same thing here. Now, if they cap this one out, we get an extra 6 power, and we're going to get an extra 6 on top of that because of the Iron Man doubling Mojo. It's going to double everything else here. It'll be a pretty big power lane, so will this one, even though we only have Mystique and a Wolfsbane that have any power in Dark Dimension. Wolfsbane's going to be 9 power, Mystique is 3, and then that's going to be doubled. So I feel very, very confident. If I wasn't afraid that they would retreat, I would snap here. But since I want to see this one play out, I'm not going to snap. We're going to play it easy. We're going to play it slow. Let them figure out just how big our last turn power push is, even though we didn't get to play our Mr. Negative this game. Of course, a lot of it was enabled by Dark Dimension. Just being able to work around that location is very, very big in allowing you to do a secret second Iron Man onto the board. Okay, and so they do flood the far right and the far left lane. I'm guessing maybe they were worried about us playing a Shang-Chi in Gamma Lab, but that was not our end game. That was not our in-game goal. So the Mysterio, the Rock, and the Bucky Barnes, none of which are going to push that much power. Even if the real Mysterio is in mid, we win Subterranea. We should have no problem winning Dark Dimension either. That's going to be a massive 28 power. We have 18 power in Subterranea, so we do come out with the win in both the left and the middle location. And that is going to be the last game for the video. I do have another Bast deck that I am tweaking, I am working on, so we should have plenty of different brews and ideas that are coming out very, very soon. But I did want to showcase the negative Bast to see how powerful it is. I think it does improve the Mr. Negative, the negative Seratonin kind of archetype, but I don't think it is as strong as it once was. Whenever Magic was able to be played on turn 6, it just allowed so much more flexibility. But I do think it is still strong nonetheless. And so I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. And as always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.